As regulars know, it was my surprise encounter with the stealthy, destructive ageism beast that got me going with the Big Middle more than a year ago. My story's on my website, susanflory.com. Exposing and battling ageism remains a key focus of the podcast, but it's fully free range now. The longevity revolution is upon us and demands urgent, all areas attention. We're not only living relatively healthier for longer, an extra 10 years or more than our grandparents, we're aging differently, expecting more, insisting society register that and get in sync, adapt the life course to suit our new normal, instead of shoving a society in our new prime, our 50s and 60s. Science is pushing ahead, making impressive strides in preventative and regenerative medicine to achieve parity in healthspan and lifespan. That parity is at the heart of a sweeping strategy unveiled in the UK by a cross-party group of politicians, scientists, academics, and public health experts and advocates, the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Longevity. For details, have a listen to the episode with Tina Woods, their co-leader. As the group's head of communications, I get to meet and interview so many game-changing pioneers in healthy longevity. If you're not among those pioneers on the science side, I guarantee your mind is about to be blown by the transformational work with stem cells and vaccines being done by my guest, Wayne Channon, a physicist, tech and life sciences entrepreneur I interviewed for the APPG for Longevity a few months ago. He's the chairman of Cells for Life, the UK's largest cord blood bank, Stabilitech Biopharma, and a number of other biotech companies. He's a strategic advisor on the APPG Science and Business Boards and a corporate sponsor of the group. Here's that interview. Wayne Channon, from your perspective as a sponsor of the APPG for Longevity, what do you think is important for everyone to know about this work?
The idea behind the APPG is to look at how we can extend healthy life by 5 years by 2035. This is an enormous task. Because from a scientific point of view, which is where I come from, we're to add on 5 extra healthy years. I think it's quite clear to see how we could do that, both with regenerative medicine, better predictive work, and also getting involved at an earlier stage before people have problems. So I can see that working. But when we do that, there are all sorts of ancillary problems, like if people live 5 years longer, what about social care? What about mental issues? How long are they going to work? And the APPG has brought all of these issues together with experts in each area. And the area that I'm primarily involved in on the science side, it's been quite amazing to look at the other parts which are looking at it in as much detail. The APPG is doing something which I've never seen before, globally, which is really looking at this in a holistic sense. And the part that we're playing, I think, for regenerative medicine it's going to be super exciting. It may be the way, actually, that the UK starts to lead the world in this area.
It's a massive goal to add 5 extra years of healthy life expectancy. As you pointed out, we're all living longer, but we're not living those longer years better in good health. Your company, Cells for Life, is a sponsor of the APPGL. What sort of work are you doing that links into all of that?
Right. What we do is we are at one end of the spectrum. We store umbilical cord blood stem cells, not only the blood actually, but from placental tissue. And these stem cells they're as young as you can possibly be. They're day one, the day you are born. Now, there's several reasons why you'd want to do that, as opposed to adult stem cells, which we've got adult stem cells in us now. The number of stem cells that you have declines with age. As you get older, you lose not some, but a lot. For example, when the world's oldest woman died at the age of 115, she was found to have just 2 stem cells creating her entire immune system. When those 2 stem cells are gone, that would be it. She would have died of some infection. When you're born, you have, let's say, 100%. By the time you're 20, you've already lost about 80%. So an exponential curve, an exponential decline. Not only do you lose the number, but you lose the power. And the earlier they are, the more plastic they are, the more things they can become, the stronger they are. So getting them very early on is where we come from. However, I'm involved in a number of things. For example, I'm on the board of Heart Cells. And Heart Cells have now treated 400 patients for people who've had a heart attack, who after the heart attack were no-hopers. There is no way that they could be expected to live a longer, more productive life. But what we've been able to do using stem cells from their bone marrow is inject them directly into the damaged part of the heart. And these stem cells, which are as old as the people themselves, they're not young ones from the umbilical cord. These older ones, and 60% of the people have given them their lives back. It's a difference, for example, from being able to walk up 2 stairs and having to sit down because you're out of breath, and walking up 2 flights of stairs.
I'm curious, with the heart cells then, is that a supplemental treatment to pharmacological therapeutics after a heart ailment, or is it on its own?
It's on its own, but normally what will happen is somebody will have a heart attack, they'll be given first-line care, the normal care that they would get, and many people, when the NHS have exhausted what they can do, you might live another 6 months, you might live a year, we'll keep you on these drugs. They do the best they can. What heart cells do is they come in after that. And for these people who have really, there's no possibility of anything left, they've been brought onto the clinical trial. We've done a phase 1 clinical trial, which tested just for safety, and then a phase 2 clinical trial, which tests for more safety, but some efficacy, i.e. does it work. We've completed a substantial phase 1 and phase 2 with excellent results. And we're now looking at doing a phase 3. So the phase 3 is going to be a much larger study. It's going to be going out to many more hundreds of patients, probably about 600 to 800 patients. And I think after that, we should be able to release into the National Health Service. Now, heart attacks, heart disease is the biggest single cause of death. So if we fix that, we have every opportunity of getting people to live a few years extra. And that's not the only thing that we're involved in. We're also working with various orthopedic surgeons on looking at bringing orthopedics, bringing stem cells into joints instead of replacing a hip or a knee, or even managing finger joints, which can be very painful. But normally when you replace a hip or a knee, that's expensive. It's very invasive. It takes months of rehabilitation. There is a lot of research being done, mainly in other countries, where stem cells have been taken either from fat or from bone marrow and injected into the joint. And it's what we've seen happen is more cartilage is being grown. Now, if you can regrow cartilage, which up until recently was thought, well, you can't. You just wear it out when it's gone, it's gone. Actually, you can. But we are so at the beginning of this. This is a huge opportunity for Britain. In, for instance, America, they've been doing this for quite a long time. And they've had good results, but there's been no clinical trial. In Britain, what we need to do is have a clinical trial on orthopedics and then publish the results. And then the National Health Service can get behind that. And imagine if you could go to somebody who is what you call, the very early signs of osteoarthritis, when it's just starting to twinge a little bit. If you could treat it then, you probably will avoid getting from what would be stage 1 into stage 2, let alone stage 4 when you're looking at a joint replacement. So the idea is you get in very early on, you repair it, regenerate the tissue, and then you avoid the problem.
It's what the goal is, isn't it, to have healthy,
exactly
longer life. And we're not seeing that as yet. So when you're doing this as well, there's a cost implication because that person is walking around, bending, lifting, being active and engaged for an additional 5 years, and they're not getting NHS care.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be saving massive amounts of cost. The operation alone for a joint replacement is about 5,000. The cost of a stem cell repair will be in the hundreds, and the quality of life afterwards is increased. So you have better quality and you have a lower cost, and you don't have the concomitant costs of managing people and having to have special lifts and all the things that go around that. It's a win-win from every aspect.
The two scenarios that you've given, the heart and the osteoarthritis, that would be from the individual themselves. But how are you using the umbilical cord blood and tissue for future therapeutic use?
Well, this is the special thing about umbilical cord tissue and umbilical cord cells. These cells are very naive. They're not fully formed. So if you take the cells that we all have, on the surface of those cells, it's a protein. It's called HLA, human leukocyte antigen. And what it is it's like a fingerprint. It tells your body that this is you. If you take one of my cells and put it inside you, that fingerprint will be recognized by your immune system and that cell will be destroyed. So you're protected. We're not matched. However, umbilical cord tissue is different. Those fingerprints on the surface of the cell are not well developed, so that you're able to take those and put them into somebody who is not themselves. And this is done quite regularly. So, for instance, for somebody who's had a leukemia and they have a cord blood transplant, they don't need as good a match as you would from another adult, where you need a very good match. So it's more tolerant. Also, the engraftment, the speed of being engrafted is faster. And the one downside of using umbilical cord blood for this is you don't get very much volume. And therefore, you need somehow to get better results. And we've been working, actually what we do is we've been working on getting 3 times the number of stem cells from the same umbilical cord blood amount. And it's one of the unique things I think we in Britain can do. This is something we are very creative on creating new technologies.
What kind of technology would allow you to do that?
It's very straightforward. When you take umbilical cord blood and to store it, you have to freeze it. When you freeze it, you kill lots of the cells because they're not meant to be frozen. It's normally frozen at minus 180, 190 liquid nitrogen temperatures. And the act of processing it, so you take whatever volume comes out and you take it down to a very small volume of 22 mil, that processing loses some cells, and then the actual cryopreservation loses cells. What we have done is found a way that protects the cells as you're freezing it, so you lose less. So when you thaw these, ready to be used, they grow 3 times as much, basically. It's as simple as that. It's patented. The patent's granted in America. It's about to be granted in Europe. It's a brilliant piece of technology, so it's transformational.
You will need policy, though, to support this type of business innovation in the sector, yes?
Yeah, of course. I think again in Britain, I think we have an opportunity. America, because they had almost no regulation, they've fallen foul of any doctor being able to do anything, sometimes not with good results. In Britain, we've been much more conservative. But Japan recognized that there was a very different safety profile for these cell-based therapies. With all the cell-based therapies that have been done using umbilical cord blood, umbilical cord tissue, stem cells derived from bone marrow, from fat, there is almost no adverse events. In the trade, they're called serious adverse events. It means you have a serious problem. We just don't get that because these cells are meant to be in your body. They're not like drugs. Drugs do cause off-target effects. They can kill. So what the Japanese recognized was they're safe. So instead of doing the normal clinical trials where you do a phase 1 for safety, a phase 2 for safety plus efficacy, then a much bigger phase 3, and then eventually get a marketing license, after a phase 2, they give a 7-year temporary marketing license. This allows that therapy to be sold to the public. So the NHS could buy it, anybody can buy it. And then the data that's collected over the next 7 years is the clinical trial, the phase 3. And that's something Britain can do. And hopefully when Parliament looks at this, they will say, well, yes, we should be following this. What needs to be examined in detail is the safety profile of that. And if it is safe, then we should be doing it. And it is safe. I mean, the answer is it is, but the evidence needs to be there. And I think Britain would become the go-to place in the Northern Hemisphere if we do this. I'll give you an example. I counted on PubMed, which is where all these clinical trials are registered, clinicaltrials.gov. And we have about 8 which are non-leukemia related in regenerative medicine. Japan has 3,500. So we should be doing that. We should be the leader in Europe or the Northern Hemisphere. And then we can then take this to the rest of the world. And that, of course, in turn will pay for all this development that we need to do.
So Cells for Life is the largest cord blood bank in the UK, and it's that company of yours, that is sponsoring the APPG for longevity. I understand you also have involvement in some state-of-the-art research involving vaccines?
Yes, I'm involved. I chair a company called Stabilitech Biopharma. We are developing the world's first 10-strain influenza vaccine that will be taken orally. This is a game changer. The influenza vaccine, on average, is about a 40% efficacy. We think we can increase this to over 80%. That is a game changer in influenza and will save millions of lives around the world and billions of dollars, billions of pounds. So this is a new way of doing vaccines. It's oral vaccination.
Fascinating, cutting-edge work being done right here in the UK. Thank you, Wayne Channon.
Thank you very much.
As we chatted off mic about bringing this interview to the big middle, I asked Wayne to tell me how he feels about his work. He sent me an email with this. For the first time, Susan, in medical history, stem cells are allowing doctors to actually repair or regenerate new tissues. In the past, medical science just tried to keep you alive until your body could self-heal, if indeed it could. I've run bigger companies, but none more rewarding than Cells for Life. We are actually saving lives. As COVID-19 tightens its grip on the world at large now, have a read of a blog Wayne wrote on the Cells for Life website. He explores whether umbilical cord stem cells could be the answer to stopping this infectious coronavirus, saving more lives. Links to all, as ever, in the show notes. More thought food from the leading lights of longevity in the weeks to come, including Drs. Lynn Cox, Nir Barzilai, and Linda Fried. Thank you so much for subscribing to The Big Middle, and thank you for your kind reviews. Read some of those hugely appreciated gems, and click into the back catalogue, bursting with great guests, at susanflory.com. Until the next one, ciao for now.